We plan to get away and get relaxed, but the desert chose a completely different plan for us. Dead silence, quiet whispers, women screams, angry old men, harsh attack, hard chasing, and hopeless escape. Darkness, fear, panic, terror, chaos, and something watching in the dark. I am Khalid, the leader who took his friends in a camping trip and ended up into the hell.
Hello, this is Mohammad. Hello everybody, this is Mohammad.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome.
Hi there, this is Mohammad. I am from Saudi Arabia, and right now you're watching Moha Story channel. Before we begin, please make sure to subscribe, hit that like, and share the story everywhere so we can grow. And don't forget to leave a kind comment because your support would mean a lot to me. And if you are interested in Arabic stories, here is my Arabic channel. Well, tonight's story is true and so incredibly thrilling, filled with horror, mystery, suspense, and more. And if you have any true horror story that you would like me to tell, please send it to the email address in the description. But before we go any further, let me give you a little hint from our culture and our concept about jinn. In the Arab folklore, jinn are unseen beings. They are always mysterious and powerful. We believe that jinn are such as human. They live in the desert, houses, and they exist everywhere. And they can appear in human or animal shapes. They can follow religions and practice a normal life. Some of them are evil and some of them are so peaceful. But don't you ever touch one of them. And now, grab your snacks and your favorite drink and get ready, because you're gonna get hypnotized. The guy this story happens to says, "My name is Khalid. I am 27 years old and I live in Riyadh. Riyadh is the glowing heart of Saudi Arabia, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the whole entire Arab world. My life is usually quiet, split between my busy office job and the bright city streets. But my real passion is Kashta. Kashta is a traditional Arab desert camping trip where we leave the noisy city behind and set up a tent under the sky and drink Arabic coffee with cardamom and share stories around a warm fire. It's our way of connection with nature and honoring our deep welcoming heritage. Back in the winter of 2023, the weather was perfectly amazing and inviting. I called two of my best friends, Omar and Ali, to plan a quick weekend getaway. Omar is 26, the funny guy who never takes anything seriously and always comes with energy. And Ali is 28. He is a logical guy who's very difficult to convince. In our culture, jinn are unseen entities, but Ali refuses to believe in them or in any myths. We met at a local cafe in northern Riyadh to plan for the trip. The city was alive with bright lights, crowded streets, and the warm smell of roasted coffee. We packed my SUV with firewood, fresh food, and a very large rug for sitting. We drove toward Al-Thumama, a famous desert area just outside Riyadh, known for its endless dunes. The drive was full of laughs, classic Arabic music playing on the radio, and amazing vibes. Omar kept making jokes about Ali being too serious. We drove off the main road and went deep into the dunes, far away from the city lights. The sand swallows everything. That's an old local phrase we often hear. but never truly understood. We wanted an isolated spot where we could just relax without any of the other campers around. After driving for 45 minutes over rough terrains, we saw something strange in the distance. It was a fully set up camp, complete with a large traditional tent, but it was completely dark and totally abandoned. We parked the car and walked around the site to see if anyone was around. There was no cars, no fresh footprints, and absolutely no signs of life anywhere in the sand. The fire pit was cold, that looked like it had been there for days. A single red scarf was half buried in the sand near the tent and fluttering in the cold air. Ali laughed and said, "Someone probably got lazy and left their heavy gear behind." And Omar immediately suggested that we take over the camp instead of spending hours building our own. It was a mistake, taking over a space that didn't belong to us, but the convenience was just too tempting. We brought our stuff inside the large tent and rolled out our colorful rug. We set up our chairs outside and lit a warm fire in the existing pit. The night started perfectly, filled with comforting smell of burning wood and fresh air. We brewed our golden Arabic coffee, ate sweet and dates, and roasted some meat and cooked kabsa, which is our main dish, rice and meat or chicken. It's very delicious, and you gotta try it one day and thank me later. Omar was in top form, cracking jokes about how original owners probably ran away because the desert was too quiet. We all laughed hard, enjoying the freezing night air and the warm, delicious food. Then Omar started playfully mocking the old desert tales about the unseen things in the wasteland. He yelled out loud in the dark, asking if any hidden entities wanted some leftover roasted meat. Ali smiled and told him to stop being childish and sit down before he tripped over a rock. He reminded us that there is no such thing as ghosts or monsters, only wild desert animals and overactive human imaginations. The sand swallows everything, but right then, the surrounding desert felt quiet and very dead. I told Omar to chill out and respect the empty wilderness around us. He just smiled and threw a meat bone far into the dark dunes and laughed even louder. A heavy freezing wind hit our camp out of nowhere. It blew a thick, cold, and sharp sand into our faces and nearly put out the glowing fire. The red scarf I saw earlier flew across the ground and wrapped tightly around the leg of my chair. The violent wind stopped just as fast as it had started, leaving no trace behind in the air, and total silence returned to the camp. But it was a heavy silence that made my ear ring painfully. Ali brushed the sand off his clothes and quickly blamed the weird event on sudden atmosphere changes. Then we heard it. Coming from the deep within the pitch black dunes far ahead of us, a woman was crying out there. In the freezing empty dark, the sound grew slightly louder, turning into desperate, calling for immediate help. Omar stopped laughing instantly, dropping his warm cup of coffee directly on the sand. He stood up fast, staring instantly toward the dark desert, where the mysterious voice was echoing. He said, "We need to go help her, right now, and she might be with the family." Got stuck in the sand. He grabbed a heavy flashlight and started running toward the terrifying sound without thinking twice. Pure panic hit my chest, like a sudden heavy physical blow. I chased after him as fast as I could and grabbed his arm hard to stop him from running further. I told him, "It's too dark, and it could be a dangerous trap." Ali walked up behind us with his own flashlight, pointing the light into the empty darkness. The crying stopped completely. The silence was heavier now and almost pressing down directly on our tired shoulders. Before anyone could say any single word, the exact same screen came back again. But this time, it was not coming from the distant dunes in front of us. It was coming directly behind us. Coming from inside our tent. We froze, completely unable to move our heavy legs. The heavy fabric of the tent began to shake violently, as if a massive struggle was happening right inside. The sound swallows everything, but the violent shaking was deafening in my ringing ears. Wondering, what should we do now? Should we check inside the tent? Or just run away? Please subscribe and like, and let's continue. We stared at the heavy canvas of the tent. The violent shaking stopped as suddenly as it began, leaving a dead silence behind. Ali swallowed hard and tried to steady his hands and took a slow step towards with his own flashlight. He said it was probably just a stray dog that got trapped under the thick fabric. We slowly walked toward the main entrance. Our hearts were beating fast against our ribs. I pulled the tent flap open, expecting a wild animal to jump right at my face. The large tent was completely empty inside. Our colorful rug, our heavy blanket, our travel bags were exactly where we left them. There was no wild animals, and definitely no crying woman anywhere inside. Ali whipped cold sweat from his forehead and loudly blamed a sudden dunes devil for shaking the tent. And Omar tried to force a quick laughter, saying that the dark desert was playing aggressive tricks on our tired minds. We walked back, but the warm feeling of the kashta was completely gone. The sand swallows everything. But suddenly, the soft crunching of heavy foot broke the silence. We stood back to back, pointing our bright flashlights into the endless black darkness surrounding us. We could very clearly hear the heavy boots crunching on the loose gravel, but the bright light revealed none. The isolated footsteps sounding like 3 or 4 heavy people moving around our small zone. Then came the whispers, coming from every single direction at the exact same time. The creepy voices sounded like a strange mix of deep breathing and fast, confused mumbling. Ali kept rotating his bright light, insisting loudly that local smugglers were trying to scare us away. Before we could fully process his logical theory, a long, deep howl ripped through the freezing air. It didn't sound like a normal desert wolf or a typical stray dog roaming the dunes. The twisted sound vibrated deep in my chest, carrying a heavy pain. And suddenly, an old man appearing out absolutely from nowhere. He wore a traditional worn-out brown thobe and faded red shemagh wrapped tightly around his wrinkled face. He held a thick wooden stick, and his dark eyes stared directly at our glowing red fire. He didn't say hello or offer the warm Arabic greetings that our culture is formally known for. He pointed his crooked finger at the dark dunes and told us in a harsh voice to leave this place immediately. Omar stepped forward with his usual brave attitude and tried to lighten the heavy tense mood. He smiled and invited the old man to sit down, drink some hot coffee, and share his local desert stories. The old man just glared at Omar with total disgust, then turned back and vanished silently in the dark dunes. We rushed to the edge of the light to see where he went, but there were exactly 0 footprints in the loose sand. Ali laughed nervously and said the old guy was probably just a crazy nomad living completely off the grid. We sat back down around the warm fire, trying desperately to pretend that everything was totally normal and safe. Omar poured hot coffee and started making jokes about the angry old man needing a warm hug. He said the guy probably lost his favorite camels and was taking his bad mood out on random city campers. We actually started laughing again. We spent about 15 minutes joking, eating sweet dates, and ignoring the heavy darkness pushing against our camp. And we successfully convinced ourselves that the strange events were just a rare chain of wild animals' coincidences. But the sun swallows everything, and the dead silence that followed our laughter felt like a heavy trap. The old man stepped back into the light, but this time his wrinkled face was twisted in rage. He slammed his heavy wooden stick against the metal fire pit. He screamed that we were blind fools, deaf to the ancient warning, and that the hidden shadows were already awake. Ali stood up quickly. His strict logic finally broke into aggressive, loud, angry defense. He yelled at the old man to back off, calling him a crazy guy trying to ruin our peaceful trip. A furious verbal fight broke out, with Omar shouting loud threats, while I tried my best to calm everyone down. The old man raised his wooden stick high in the air, his dark eyes wide with wild, pure terror. He looked at us, staring directly at the large tent, and his angry face instantly turned completely pale. He dropped his heavy stick on the sand and ran toward the dark area, faster than any normal human being could ever do. We turned around, looked at the tent, and my blood ran instantly cold inside my veins. The heavy canvas was bulging inward from all sides, as if massive unseen shapes were trying to push their way inside. The thick pole groaned and bent loudly under terrifying crushing and completely invisible physical pressure. Violent hits slammed against the fabric from the outside, throwing our camping chairs across the cold sand. We couldn't see any monsters or ghosts, just brutal attacking our physical living space. A horrible screeching noise filled the air, like heavy metal tearing apart, mixed completely with that same disturbed, angry whispering. Omar grabbed his heavy flashlight and yelled that he was going to comfort whatever is hiding behind the tent. I screamed his name, but he sprinted around the shaking canvas and disappeared quickly in the darkness. The heavy hitting stops immediately, and a dead heavy silence swallowed the entire camp once again without any warning. Ali and I stood frozen, screaming for Omar to answer us, but the empty golden dunes gave us absolute no reply. 1 minute passing, then 2 minutes, feeling exactly like an absolute eternity of pure psychological torture. We were just about to run into the dark when we heard heavy, clumsy, and desperate running. Omar stumbled back into the firelight, falling hard onto his tired knees in the freezing cold sand. His face was completely white, his eyes were wide with pure terror, and his entire body was violently shaking. He looked at me, grabbing my jacket with freezing hands, completely unable from a single clear, understandable word, wondering, how do we escape an enemy that has no body? I grabbed Omar by his cold shoulder and pulled him up from the cold ground. He was totally unresponsive, staring blankly at the darkness, and Ali didn't waste time looking for logical scientific answers anymore. He just screamed, telling us to get into the car right now. We left all our expensive camping gear, the warm fire, and the delicious food behind. I dragged Omar to passenger side and pushed him safely inside the heavy SUV. Ali jumped into the back seat, locking his door with a very loud click. I got behind the steering wheel and pushed the engine start button with shaking fingers. There was no old man, no destroyed tent, and no physical attackers anywhere in front of us. I slammed my heavy foot on the gas pedal, and the car lunged forward violently. The thick tires spun wildly in the loose sand before finally gaining traction and speeding away. As we drove away from the scary sight, a massive heavy weight suddenly hit the roof of my car. The loud metal crashed, echoed inside the small cabin, shaking the entire vehicle violently from side to side. It sounded exactly like a heavy person had just jumped right on top of our moving car. Ali screamed in panic from the back seat, telling me to drive faster and not look back at all. Omar just covered his ears with his shaking hands, closing his eyes and crying silently. The sand swallows everything, but the heavy scraping noise on the metal roof was completely deafening. It sounded like a thick heavy boots grabbing slowly across the metal right above our heads. I drove recklessly over the dark endless dunes, bouncing hard over the rocks and deep hidden holes. I didn't care about breaking my expensive car. I only cared about reaching the main road alive. Thick dark shadows seemed to race alongside the car, keeping perfect spacing with our extremely fast speed. Ali kept nervously saying that they were just optical illusions caused by the headlights hitting below in loose sand. But I clearly saw the tall shadows moving around. I swerved the steering wheel very hard to the left to avoid hitting a massive dark shape standing in the way. The heavy car tilted dangerously on two wheels before slamming heavily back onto the flat, solid ground. The sudden violent impact threw whatever was on our car roof. The heavy crushing physical pressure lifted immediately, and the car suddenly felt much lighter and faster. We drove in totally absolute silence for around 10 minutes, breathing hard and sweating entirely through our thick winter clothes. Then the digital car radio turned on by itself, blasting loud, high-speed static through all the speakers. I tried to turn the volume knob down, but the plastic button was completely frozen and stuck. The loud static slowly engaged into a low, distorted, and heavily broken human voice. It was repeating the exact same angry word the strange old man had yelled to us earlier by the fire. It said we were blind, ignorant fools, and that the hidden shadows never ever forget a human face. Ali leaned forward quickly and ripped the main power cable off the plastic dashboard. The terrifying voice stopped instantly, leaving us in a heavy, suffocating dead silence once again. We drove blindly for almost 2 hours, navigating only by the faint glowing lights of the distant city ahead. The terrifying creeping feeling of being closely watched never left us, resting heavily on my tired stiff neck. Every single tall shadow in the desert looked exactly like a standing figure waiting patiently for us to crash. Finally, the rough dirt turned into smooth black asphalt under our fast spinning tires. We had successfully reached the main highway that leads directly back into the safe glowing heart of Riyadh. The sky in the east slowly started turning a soft warm shades of blue and gentle pink lights. The first bright rays of the morning sun chasing the horrible dark away. We pulled into a busy brightly lit gas station right at the outer edge of the loud city. And the normal sight of working people almost made me cry. We stepped out of the damaged SUV. Our tired legs were shaking so hard and we could hardly stand up straight. We looked at each other, completely exhausted, terrified, and forever changed by the brutal night we just survived. Omar finally opened his mouth, his voice sounding dry, rough, and completely broken from extreme fear. He looked at the bright morning sky and simply said he saw the absolute darkness breathing, and he refused to explain anything else, keeping the terrifying secrets locked deep inside his broken mind. And Ali walked around the car quickly, inspecting the physical damage in the bright, revealing morning light. The strong roof of the heavy SUV was completely caved in, covered in massive, deep metal dents. The thick black paint was scratched deeply, but there was no blood or animal hair anywhere to be found. Ali tried to logically explain it by saying that we probably hit a low-hanging tree branch in the darkness, but we both know there were exactly 0 trees in that specific part of the deep open desert. We decided to never talk about what happened, silently agreeing to bury that nightmare forever. I just wanted to pay for some cold water, go home, and lock my heavy bedroom door tight. I walked back to the driver's side and opened the lock center console to get my leather wallet. My heart completely stopped beating, and my breathing froze inside my tight, dry throat. Right on top of my wallet was the dirty, faded red fabric. It was the exact same red scarf that we saw buried in the sand when we first found that empty camp. It smelled heavily of cold ashes and that strange metallic freezing desert wind. The sand swallows everything. But the horrible, undeniable truth was screaming directly into my face. I'm wondering now, did the desert let us go? Or did it still follow us? Did it still follow us? Did it still follow us? Dear ladies and gentlemen, we came to the end of our story. Thank you very much for watching. Question: what do you think was the strange old man? And here is a piece of advice. Never claim spaces that do not belong to you. And 2, always respect the quiet wilderness secrets. And if you had been through any similar situations, feel free to share it with us in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, please support the channel by giving a like, share the video, and leaving a kind comment. God bless you and protect you all. This was your friend Mohammad, aka Moha. Y'all take care. See you later.